We welcome you to the plate meeting. This is a mini-sode. This is Gil and Tmac. We're going to talk about some issues from a very busy week of baseball since the All-Star game. And we thought, well, we have enough topics. Let's just have a shoot around.
Yeah, and to the other point, Gil, great to be with you again, as always. Your videos have become so popular, I thought I'd come on and try to ruin them.
Oh, of course. I think I've been doing a good job ruining them myself. But
man, they are awesome, fantastic.
So I think that we should begin going back to the All-Star break. Can you believe it was just a week ago that the Atlantic League had its first ejection for balls and strikes under the new TrackMan automated ball strike system?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, baseball is a conservative sport, and whenever you implement drastic change, there are going to be some people to push back. I'm on the record on this numerous times. I think once we get the technology situated, it's fantastic. But I would like a challenge system, much like I've said it on numerous occasions, like in tennis, they use the Hawkeye, and give each defensive team 3 challenges, and if they lose that challenge. If they get it, they get to keep it. If they get it right, I think it's a way that both sides. The problem here, and we'll get about this. I know a lot of the topics you want to discuss is both sides don't want to budge. There are people that only want the computer, and there are people that only want the human. People aren't willing to compromise, and that's part and parcel to the kind of society we live in right now.
I think that, and I've been sitting on this for about a week, waiting for a day with no news. But Frank Viola, who got ejected for arguing the computer's judgment, actually gave an interview where he's not a fan of the system, and he's not a fan of the umpires sitting back and basically letting TrackMan do its job. He wants the umpires to overrule it. And as an umpire, how can you tell when the system is wrong when it's a margin of about an inch here or there? That is a really difficult call, and I think that's more rhetorical than anything else. But second, in researching and pretending to do the amount of research that you do preparing for a show, looking at your proposal for the challenge system using Hawkeye, one of the articles that I found in researching Hawkeye was from The Athletic, and it was sort of an under-the-rug, no fanfare article from the preseason saying MLB is quietly going away from TrackMan and it's planning to bring in Hawkeye for the 2020 season. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's the right way to go. I haven't heard anybody complain about the tennis technology, and we all know that those serves are coming in at 130 miles an hour plus, oftentimes. So I don't know the dynamics, the technology's sake, but I haven't seen one person other than John McEnroe about 25 years ago complain about it. And that was pretty much par for the course with him. I have to imagine that the technology can be better based on the stuff that you've put on the site, Gil. I can't imagine that anybody wants to see neck-high strikes. I mean, maybe some pitchers do, but or pitches that are called off the ground. Or part of the problem with the strike zone now is that it's so hard to determine, based on just average heights, where a guy's strike zone should be. And there are certainly some issues that'll get straightened out. But I make no mistake about it. I think the technology will be part of our game for a lot of years to come. So you can fight it all you want. It might not be ready now. I made the point the other day that, somebody said, what if the technology was 99% effective? And I said to that person, do you need glasses? And the guy goes, yeah. I said, well, what if I told you I could get you LASIK surgery for $200 an eye, but it's only 99% effective? And he went, no, thank you. And I said, that's kind of how I feel about it. Until it gets to the point where it's almost perfect, we're really just debuting something to make it look bad and embarrassing. And it's not doing it's not doing a service for the game, to say the least.
You think this is a little bit of scorched earth here with TrackMan? If MLB, if they're planning to bring Hawkeye in anyway, You think they're trying to make TrackMan look bad so they can say, we hear your complaints, we hear your concerns, so this is what we're going to do about it. Of course, under the table saying we were planning on doing this for at least a year anyway.
Well, let me ask you this. It was supposed to debut for opening day, correct?
Correct.
And it is now the second half of the season, and it still hasn't officially debuted in every ballpark. So that means that Major League Baseball doesn't want to be thoroughly embarrassed. And based on the what you've seen, and again, you follow this a lot closer than I am because I'm doing games all the time, but doesn't it appear that it's not ready?
I would say so, absolutely. My main thing is I look at this, and I think TrackMan goes the way of the predecessors, which include QuestTech. Toward the end of its relationship with Major League Baseball, QuestTech completely tanked. The company went under federal investigation. The stock was absolutely crazy crashing. And you move on to the Sport Vision Pitch FX, which is now embroiled in this lawsuit with MLB Advanced Media over alleged patent theft. And I just think that based in statistics at least, the stats of the prior companies coming out of their relationship with baseball don't look good. And I think that TrackMan's headed in that downward trajectory, for better or for worse, whether it's their fault or not. I think that they're headed down that slope as well.
And I'm going to beat a dead horse here, but, I've talked to people about my ideas, and the only way you don't like that idea is if you only want it your way. And I don't think anybody would mind. I know it would take a little getting used to, if there's a 2-2 pitch on a strike three and the batter immediately, and it's not wait for the dugout to signal. It's the batter or the catcher, the pitcher have to immediately put their hand up after the pitch is called. And who wouldn't mind looking up at that board and seeing everything, how captivated you would be, how locked in you would be. And I think that would show, much like we have overturns on the bases, and we get to see pretty consistently the guys that are missing 13, 14 calls a year. Sometimes there's an anomaly, and a guy will miss 12 and then get 4 or 5 misses the following year. But the same guys miss the most calls pretty much every year. So, you can rank umpires based on the same thing. Who misses the least amount of calls? And I think it would be great for the game. Everything would be a little more transparent, because you could say, "Oh my goodness, umpire X there, he missed 9 pitches that game." Whereas, boy, you notice that umpire there, he doesn't miss. I mean, it's just an idea, and I don't hear anything better being mentioned. I don't know what you hear, but I'd like to see both sides still remain relevant. I can't imagine a game where the plate umpire just stands back there to speak out what a computer tells him to. And also, I have a lot of problems with the delays in the system and with the fact that it just doesn't make calls some of the time. So now, if you're cultured to not make any calls, and all of a sudden the 2-2 pitch in the 7th inning with first and third and 2 outs, the computer goes, I missed it. Then you have to make a call. I mean, come on. The other reason I like that system of challenges is because let's say the computer does miss a pitch. You can put up there, no data. So that makes, doesn't put the game in a spot of being compromised.
Right. One of the things that the ejected Frank Viola said, speaking of the delay, because umpires don't get the result immediately. There's a slight delay before the umpire hears whether the computer has a ball or a strike. One of the things Frank Viola said was the games where we had TrackMan, first 2 games of the series, were 3.5 hours. The last game we didn't have TrackMan, it was only 2.5 hours. I'm sure the whole hour break isn't due solely to TrackMan, but I'm sure that there's a correlation. Those delays add up in the end. And second, when MLB knows its challenge system, it has had replay review since 2014. It knows what the challenge system is. And one of the things with the challenge system that Tony La Russa, who was on the committee when they brought it in 2014, said was, we want to use the system to correct the obvious miss, which is a great thing, and that should be the goal of the ball strike challenge system if we ever get there as well. The problem, of course, is now you have batters or runners or whatever popping up about an inch off the base going from the left foot, popping up to the right foot, and they're off the base for a split second by the slimmest of margins, and the defense holds the tag on, and the runner gets called out, or some Pandora's box minor thing like that. So if we get to this challenged ball strike system, I would hope that it would be used for the gross miss as well. Certain 2+ inches of incorrect, not something that may or may not be on the edge. But then again, if we ever get to a system of 100% accuracy, which I don't know that we're going to get there, but let's assume that we do, maybe challenging a pitch that misses by 0.1 inches might be the new normal.
Well, what I would like to see on just, kind of like on the bases or any call that goes to replay is I'd like to see the challenge be immediate. I can't stand this, let's wait, let me get 5 different angles and then make – I think when guys are safe, they're safe. And I'm not talking about guys sliding 3 feet past the base. I'm talking about, when, like you said, guys pop up off the base by an inch. There's 8 cameras. I remember the Terrence Gore play, if you're a Royals fan, a few years ago, where he's completely disconnected. His stomach's above the base. We get to the point where technology is kind of, too much. I say it all the time. When guys go in feet first to a base, they always pop up a little bit, right? They're safe. They should be safe. Shouldn't consider them to be out. I also think that again, when guys go into home plate feet first, it is very hard to get your foot onto that plate. You see it all the time. I can't imagine how many calls I've missed over the years because a guy's leg was completely over the plate, but he never really touched the plate, but he's been accepted as safe. You don't get pulled over for going 43 and a 40, let's hope. I think there are certain plays that should be accepted and not necessarily viewed. And to those people who disagree, I would say the same thing that I said to Dylan Yep. Do you get pulled over for doing 43 and a 40? If you want everything to be letter of the law, then next time you go 43 and a 40, get pulled over, get fined to the fullest extent of the law.
And that's actually one of the analogies that I gave about this discrepancy between zone evaluation, the MLB private system for its umpires, and the public-facing baseball savant, which Mark T. Williams used in the Boston University study. Just as an illustration, I said, the difference between these numbers is basically you're going 55 in a 50 zone, but the computer says that you're going 60, so you get a ticket for it. It's that type of thing, but that's we've known about this for a while, and I think that if you really get down to the basics and you really want to get absolutely crazy in figuring out if someone has touched a base or not, why not go all the way? Analyze it at the molecular level. Subatomic particles do not touch, so nothing in the universe is connected. So technically, everyone is out because no one has touched, but then again, a tag never touches a player either. So that's just a philosophical thing to think about that nothing ever touches anyway, so who really cares about it? One other thing that happened this past week, and there were so many. First of all, let's briefly touch on the Angels and Astros, who apparently now have bad blood. Jake Marisnick got suspended for 2 games for knocking out Jonathan Lucroy. That's a broken nose concussion. He's going to be out for possibly the rest of the year. And so the Angels drilled Marisnick in a game at Angels Stadium. And Marisnick, he wore it. He took his base. He was cool. And then the dugout started chirping, and Albert Pujols started chirping back, and that was a semi-bench clearing. The benches didn't clear so much as the bullpens. The bullpens running on the field is quite possibly one of the stupidest things in the sport. But the bullpens cleared, and the umpires quickly took care of business. Nothing happened. But after the game, of course, Ausmus says, "Oh, sometimes some guys get hit, non-intentional." The pitcher said, "Oh, it got away from me." I get it. I know why they say that. Didn't matter. MLB suspended them anyway. Are we done, or should we expect something else from these teams?
Oh, who knows? A lot of it just depends on the manager. And it's Brad Ausmus, so who knows? But I want to touch on something else here. We've spoiled these hitters. They're allowed body armor. Nobody can throw inside. Anytime they get thrown inside, they put on a display. They sit there and show up pitchers and show up umpires and show up anybody they can. And I'm being general here. And there's no ramification. Look, I'm not saying they should be headhunted, but I just really believe that when you're allowed to do whatever you want, you become spoiled, you become entitled, and there's no ramifications. In the Dave Phillips podcast, we talked about people skills, and that might be on part 2. But I just see these players applauding when an umpire gets injured. These players need to sit for 10 days. Could you imagine an umpire applauded after a player got hurt? Could you imagine? Just think about that for a second. That umpire might be fired, right or wrong.
Yeah.
So we've got to disconnect with the way these players are behaving, and because they're light on crime in the office, that could lead to your next topic here of what this labor dispute is going to be all about.
Yeah. July 16th, just to fill everyone in, Brad O'Nora gets possibly concussed. I can't confirm that. But he gets a head injury in the game, hit by a backswing early. He stays in for a few more innings. Marco Gonzales is a pitcher who wants a strike call that O'Nora does not call a strike, and that was an incorrect call per the computer. And following that, the batter gets on base. Then Marco gives up a home run to the ensuing hitter, and then gives up another home run to the hitter after that. And, of course, it's the umpire's fault, because it always is. And then as O'Nora is getting treated and then walked off the field, we are treated to a gratuitous shot of Gonzales clapping and laughing and all sorts of fun stuff. And the announcers for the A's, and this is where the opposing broadcast, the opposing fans think that our video that I put up on YouTube has been edited heavily and all of this and that. No, it's just the opposing broadcast. This video that I put up is straight from MLB. The only edit to it was that I did a voiceover track, which was commentary and criticism.
Oh, Gil, just think about the mental gymnastics that people have to do to defend that guy. You've got to be, when you want to come back to the reality-based world, if you're defending that guy, then we'll welcome you when you're here. But you're not here if you think that wasn't directed at O'Nora. It's just embarrassing. We make excuses for the worst kinds of behavior. How about being tough on crime? That's something that should never happen. And whenever you want to reverse it and say, let's say that O'Nora did that to the player after the player was hit with with a bat or something, or a line drive, they'd be calling for him to be fired. He probably would be fired. Absolutely. And we don't even know if he got fined for that display. Absolutely embarrassing.
Absolutely. And then one final note on an administrative thing, and just from our plethora of head injuries, just a footnote: Quinn Walcott was out on a foul to the mask. Fortunately, O'Nora is back at work. We're gonna hope that Quinn Walcott has a fast recovery as well. But one administrative note: we saw the retirement of Mike DiMuro, and we saw the hiring of Chad Whitson to the full-time staff. So congratulations to both. Congratulations to Mike on a terrific career. I wish that, and I'm sure he would have liked to end it a little bit differently. Unfortunately, injuries are a part of the game, as evidenced by O'Nora and Walcott out on those foul balls and backswings. So unfortunate ending, but congratulations nonetheless on the terrific career in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's always hard to see a guy retire due to injuries. Mike is a great guy, and his father is a legendary umpire, or was a legendary umpire. And you asked me a couple of days ago who did I think the new hire would be, and I said it was between probably Whitson and Lentz. And I think that surprised – I know it surprised other people when I said that. I didn't mention it on the site. because we don't break news on our
it.
site. But I will say this, Major League Baseball, for whatever reason, was in love with Chad, even though he was seventh as far as games per over or overturns per game. I wasn't surprised because, I just hear the rumblings and follow what's going on. But I'm disappointed because I think there are some really, everybody knows what I think of Ryan Blaney. I think the Chris Siegel is deserving, and I think these guys will get jobs. It just, I don't know what Ryan has to do to impress them anymore. He's been fantastic, and it's not a knock on Chad. More it is that I think there are some other guys that just are really good umpires as well that hopefully will get their opportunity this offseason.
And one quick note for anyone who wants to follow along and try to preview who the next umpire in baseball is. We have our All-Star break review of the call-up umpires on the website. And if you were following baseball this past week, actually, you'd notice that, and throughout the whole season, the reason that we went between Lentz and Whitson on this one was because these are the guys that were consistently up this year. And especially this past week, this was what broke the tie, so to speak, or not for MLB because they already made their call, but for us trying to figure out what call they made. What broke the tie was Nick Lentz changed crews and Whitson stayed with the same crew, which suggests that he had been the one hired and assigned to a crew, whereas Lentz was still filling in. Anyway, funny little footnote there, but congratulations to Whitson for his hiring and to Mike DiMuro for his career. And now the bread and potatoes, meat and potatoes, what is it? The whole thing. We have a contract year for our umpires, don't we?
Yeah, this is going to be the fascinating topic that everybody wants to know about if you're in the umpiring world. We got a question on the website, and I'm going to read it right now. How do you guys see the contract negotiations going with the umpires union this offseason? I know the league and umpires union don't always see eye to eye, but I almost suspect that they take the current agreement, extend it for another 5 years. Thoughts? ? That's a great question. I can see this going one of two ways. First of all, let's reassess here. Let's take the summary. Bill Miller is in as the union president. That's a guy that Major League Baseball likes. You remember when Cabrera threw his elbow pad and it bounced and hit Miller? Cabrera got, I believe it was 2 games.
Yep.
When a bat was thrown at the stands and it hit the retaining wall, that gentleman, Machado, got 1 game. You don't think those are related? They absolutely are. They don't want to tick off Miller because Miller can make things difficult for them. So, I'm not saying equipment hitting somebody isn't bad, but on a bounce like that, on an elbow guard, let's be reasonable here. Let's use common sense. When we assess the rules at umpire school, they always say common sense and fair play. I think the suspension for Machado should have been much longer. So that being said, that came on the heels of the problems with Machado and the umpire abuse. What is Major League Baseball doing with guys offering glasses to umpires? The pitcher comes off the mound, didn't like a call, offered his glasses to Rob Drake. Drake didn't see it, and I find it hard to believe nobody on the crew saw it. But, that guy stayed in the game. So all these little ways of disrespecting umpires, the lack of respect, I hope that they stand up for themselves. I don't know that they have a whole heck of a lot of leverage here if they can get the technology where it needs to be for the computer, because they can say, hey, you guys don't want to umpire? Fine, we'll just use the computer. But the computer not being ready increases their leverage. So that kind of ties in, Gil, to everything. I have a bad feeling about this. I don't know why. And I kind of go back and forth. I have a bad feeling that Major League Baseball is going to play some hardball here. We all know they would love to break the umpire union. I don't think this is going to be an easy negotiation. I think if the umpires are willing to accept what they currently have, then it'll be easy. It'll be an easy exchange. But I can't imagine. This reeks of hostile work environment. where players can just do whatever they want. The stress levels go out through the roof. I just feel like somebody's got to stand up, for the umpires in Major League Baseball.
The first time I mentioned hostile work environment in relation to how the umpires are getting treated, it was with Angel Hernandez. And people both on the field who are not employees of Major League Baseball proper, such as Ian Kinsler, and people off the field that are employees of Major League Baseball, such as Pedro Martinez and everyone's open season on Angel. And I said, hey, if MLB continues not to do anything, then we conceivably could have a hostile work environment claim here, in addition to the discrimination charges, which, oh yeah, that was a news story too this past week, where MLB, on a side note, MLB asked the judge in New York, hey, Angel's trying to bring charges based on both Ohio and New York law. Choose one, not the other. Now, this isn't anything unusual. This is a legal tactic that's used by a lot of lawyers throughout the country in civil suits it's called forum or venue shopping. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get laws that are most favorable to you to be the ones that are used. So Angel, when he brought it in Ohio, why did he bring it in Ohio? The reason was because the laws helped him the most in that state. MLB said, no, let's do it in New York. That's where we do business. So they moved to New York. They wanted the New York laws because it's more beneficial for them. And the court said, okay, fine, we're going to go with New York. So again, it's not a huge deal, but it kind of is. It's forum shopping. It's a common legal tactic. And the laws chosen were the human rights laws for New York State. That's all. But in any case, hostile work environment, which is a completely separate thing, came into existence on our site due to the treatment of Angel Hernandez. So I think it's interesting because it's spread beyond him. It's not just him, though he might be the poster child for these issues at times. It's not just him. It's league-wide. And that kind of thing is getting worse as time goes by. Or maybe it's not getting worse, and it's just that we're seeing it more. Either way, this is something that will have to be addressed one way or another. But the question is, how do you address it? Because people can talk. They have the right to do that. And especially if compelling television on the network is, we need to bash the umpires, how is MLB even going to begin to try to stop that? I just don't see a way out for that. So it's sort of a simmering thing that we'll see how it continues to pressurize and bubble and all of this other stuff going forward. But worst comes to worst, Tmac, do you see a potential for a labor stoppage?
I do. When we have umpires being, it's not a level playing field. If a player does the same thing an umpire does, an umpire is going to sit and the player gets fined. I can tell you that one umpire was suspended this year, and I don't want to get into the details of it, but for essentially joking around with one of the people in the office. And that umpire sat. That's embarrassing. So, the sense of humor level is, if they don't like your joke, you're gonna have a seat. So that was a double secret deal, and I see players treating umpires so poorly. It's like this. Who can we bully? Well, we can't bully the players union because they're too tough and too big, and they're out of control. But we can bully the umpires because they don't. We can do that, and they bully the umpire. The office bullies the umpires, and I would like to see them stand up for themselves. I don't feel as though the relationship's going to get better. I don't know. I don't see them just all of a sudden, without getting fined, without getting suspended, waking up one day and says, and there's 500 Mike Trouts in the league who are, polite and cordial. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Ian Kinsler goes after Hernandez in post-game comments. Carlos Gomez goes after Fletcher in post-game Twitter rant or Periscope or one of those social media outlets. And there's nothing there in terms of suspension. Joe West jokes about Adrian Beltre, and Beltre's in on the joke, and he gets 3 games.
Well, let me tell you something, Gil. A spoiled child doesn't wake up at the age of 15 and go, boy, you know what? I've been spoiled my whole life. You know what? I'm going to behave now. And we are culturing these players to be like petulant children. I'm not saying they are, but that's the culture we're creating. And the culture that's being created isn't conducive to a good working environment between the players and umpires. Who can change that culture? Well, the umpires can fight that battle, but all they're going to do is just have ejections, and they're going to be viewed as the bad guys. They need support from Major League Baseball, and they're not getting, in my opinion, this is solely my opinion, they're not getting the proper support at this time.
How do we fix it?
Well, you certainly have to make things more public when you find a guy. If a guy offered glasses, let him sit a game. Or say, hey, we're going to fine this guy $250. I don't know what the fine things are. I know the fines are a joke, but let's at least take some money. If a guy's making, the Major League Baseball minimum, and we fine him $1,500, he's gonna take the fine seriously. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And again, I know it's so hard, but it's always, we couldn't do anything because of the players' union. Oh, our hands are tied. Well, and if that's the case, then rip up the agreement and start anew. If players can't get fined a certain amount for behaving like that for an ejection, then we're really going to lose the sport here. I know the demises of things overrated. Look, we're not going to wake up in 3 years and baseball is going to be done, but I see this all the time. These summer leagues are dying all over the place, and there's less and less people playing baseball, and there's less and less teams, and teams are forfeiting games during the season because kids don't want to play because it's hot. I mean, we're not doing the things to make kids want to play. They want to play soccer, they want to play lacrosse, they want to do other things, and it's going to be a slow process. People say the death of baseball is going to be overnight. It's going to be a slow process. It's going to be generations. You look at attendance figures across the minor leagues and major leagues. The new stadium boom is over. Those attendance figures are getting lower and lower and lower and lower. I mean, Camden Yards, look at the numbers there. I know the team's not good, but people aren't just going to baseball games. So what do? You've got to get support from the top. If you don't have a strong leadership, everything else is a house of cards. So I would hope that, that somebody, I guess it's not going to be Joe Torre, but somebody up there will say, okay, enough is enough. I mean, what's it going to take before somebody, and unfortunately, Gil, the precedents have been set so low that a bump of an umpire is one game. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I'm looking at NBA, where it seems that the slightest criticism of an official in a press conference is a $50,000 fine at minimum. And I'm looking at the suspensions in the other sports for these things. I mean, you don't really hear that type of personal, impassioned criticism of officials in sports without any repercussions like you do in baseball. And baseball plays the longest season, so the suspension should theoretically mean less in baseball. If baseball season is 162 and NHL, NBA is 81, which is half of that, and football's even a lot less, and the other sports have significant penalties that are stronger than baseball's in terms of actual game penalties. That just seems to me that, wow, the Players Association for Baseball got a really, really good deal, didn't they? And I don't know how you fix it if the precedent in baseball is such that the Players Associations are high and mighty and the umpires are sort of the underlings of the league. Just like anything else, that can't change overnight. And the question is, What strategy do the umpires take to affect that change? And we know what happened in '99 when they did the mass resignation strategy. How do we prevent something like that from happening? And
Yeah.
does this become something where the umpires get locked out, or are they going to strike at the end of the term? What are the specifics going to be? Or is there going to be labor peace because a good chunk of the senior staff just wants to retire?
Well, I've had umpires tell me in private, Gil, that the 1999 umpires resignation was short-sighted and a disaster, and that Richie Phillips and the union might have gotten a little too big for their britches. Umpires have told me, former MLB umpires have told me that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it gets to the point where the union might have to burst their bubble, and I think Major League Baseball should try that. Labor peace is great, but if contracts are an all-time high, then who cares about if you criticize an umpire, you get a $25,000 fine? Who cares about that? Who cares? Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear people say, "Oh, I can't believe the speed limit is 50," unless they want to do 70. The people that do 55 don't care, but the people that want to do 75, I can't believe the speed limit's this low. So then don't speed. Follow the rules. And we have a lot of players right now that don't think the rules apply to them. And when they don't get fined and they don't get suspended, and sometimes not even ejected, how do you think that behavior is going to be?
Right.
Not going to get better. And look, we're talking probably, Gil, it's probably 5%. It's probably 2 or 3 guys a team. It's not 20 guys a team, 2 or 3 guys a team. And certain managers come to mind. Mm-hmm. Don Mattingly, Aaron Boone, who that disgraceful display against Brennan Miller in New York. It's one thing if you want to, get your money's worth. And I know a lot of guys don't like that saying, but I don't have a problem with it. But it's another thing altogether. You want to belittle and degrade the umpire. And I think if Jerry Davis had known what was going to happen, he would have been in there and given him some, that's where having a Gary Cedarstrom or a Joe West or a Ted Barrett as a real, or a Tom Hallion, just one of the real great crew chiefs. And, I was very disappointed that Miller got, eviscerated like that by Boone. And it's so disrespectful. And it shows no concern for the guy's working his 5th plate. It's just the treatment that I see on a day in, day out basis towards umpires at the big league level. And that is part of the culture of the way guys treat guys at the lower level. They see that in New York and they think that all these youth ball coaches can do the same thing. They don't differentiate the two, because these are the same guys that are calling up sports radio going, I coach a 14 UAAU team. I really disagree with Darren Boone and the decision he made in the 7th inning, leaving his pitcher in. That those calls happen, Gil, believe it or not. I don't know if they happen on the West Coast. They happen on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And these people don't have rational thought, a lot of these coaches, especially when the heat comes in. So, I just want to see baseball, be at peace with players and coaches. Look, I know it's utopia. It's not going to happen all the time. But my feelings are that, the sentiment towards umpires from the highest levels all the way down is not a pleasant experience right now. And that's why one of the reasons that we don't have guys to work games. 2-man games are going down to 1 because there's just not enough guys that want to sit there and get yelled at for 7 innings.
We have an official shortage in the country. It's not a secret anymore. We've been seeing news stories about this for years. People are just tired of getting abused and they're quitting. It's not enough money. It's not enough reward for, you can be working with some great partners and all, but if at the end of the day, you're not getting any help whatsoever when you get out onto your field, you're going to quit if the abuse is too bad. And we've talked about this, and we partner with OSIP, the sportsmanship charity. It's a mission that we believe in to improve these conditions. It's the hostile work environment plays into that as well. These are the type of things that I've had a disciplinary event in a youth game where a parent would just go, parent would just start, talking personal stuff to me. And I stopped the game and I said, look, and I said this to him, but I said this to the entire stands. I said, look, we have an official shortage in this country. And the reason is because of abusive comments, personal comments like this one right here that are inappropriate for this game. So please stop, enjoy the game, and don't get personal with me or with any of the players. And and the opposing side of the stands all applauded and all of that, and the guy was contrite and oh you caught me, so therefore I didn't mean it, that sort of thing. But that's where we're at. People think they can do this without consequence, and it rubs off on all the lower levels, all the kids. I don't know if Tmac, you saw that video of the little kid manager in the minors. He pretended to be a coach or whatever, and he threw his little tantrum coming out on the field, and sort of everyone was in on the joke. So it's not.
Oh, that was a joke?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was the real manager of that team. Oh.
He comes out, kicks dirt on the plate umpire, who he gets tossed. The umpire's just standing there, probably trying not to laugh, and he goes around, picks up some bats from the dugout, throws them out onto the field and things like that. So I thought, this is kind of amusing satire, but at the same time, I thought, well, what if this kid is really learning the wrong lesson here? Because there's a chance he grows up and does this, and it's not a joke anymore.
I guess. I mean, we talked about this off the air. I didn't know. I still don't know how to feel about it. I don't like displays like this. Nobody comes to the game and goes, well, I'm going to go back because I hope the manager steals third base, brings it in the stands, and delays the game 15 minutes. I mean, maybe there are 8 people that go for that, but I can't imagine. Nobody likes these tantrums. When I started in indie ball back in, it was literally a joke. Like, people are like, that couldn't get jobs in affiliated ball, ex-big leaguers, but they were getting jobs because they could play, and they were not nice people, a lot of them, and there were ejections, seemingly every night. A lot of times, at least one a series. There were brawls. There were, because these were renegade players for the most part in renegade leagues. However, I think a lot of studies were done, and nobody wanted to see fights and beanball wars and managers cursing out umpires and players, and it became much more like affiliated baseball as far as the family-friendly persona of it. And that hasn't changed. So, look, here's the bottom line. We all have to follow Dave Phillips' advice and try to develop people skills, get along with people, because it makes the world a better place. And even if there are disagreements, you talk through those disagreements, and the next day, you need to be on the same page again. You can't go 3 days later and be like, oh, I'm going to get this guy, or vice versa, because then the problem is different than baseball. That's a personal issue then. So,
and that's a great lead into our final conversation piece. Our podcast with Dave Phillips is available. Part 1 is currently out. Part 2 will be out shortly. It's currently available on Close Call and all of your preferred podcast vendors, as it were. And I'm looking forward to part 2. I'm looking forward to hearing a few more of these stories. I really enjoyed, for instance, the corked bat by Albert Bell, and the sneaky clubhouse theft, the FBI getting involved. This stuff is great. I can't wait to see what happens in part 2.
Well, I hope you guys are enjoying these podcasts that we do. Look, they're not easy. They take up a lot of time. People don't realize how much time they take up, at least for me, in book reading and going through box scores and doing all that stuff. But it's a labor of love. And I'd like to thank our great fans out there, because we just crossed over the 4,000 mark on Twitter followers. We crossed over, I believe it was 4,600 on Facebook. And our relatively new YouTube, well, it's not a new YouTube page, but it's a YouTube page that we're now engaging with, has gained, I think, well over 200 followers in the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I think we're approaching 750 there, or around that number. So I can't thank you guys enough for staying engaged with us. And look, Facebook and Twitter, that's where everything goes first. You know, if you want to get notified if something happened, you'll be the first to know that Mike DiMuro is retiring or Chad Whitson's getting a job. Facebook and Twitter is where to be. You don't want to be the guy the last guy to know, right? You want to be the one telling everybody. So check us out on those places. Very simple. Just look up umpire ejections on Twitter or Facebook, and you'll find it. Pretty easy. And on YouTube, Close Call Sports. Search for that in the on YouTube, and you'll be able to and then click the subscribe button, and you'll find these really great videos that over the last couple of weeks that Gil has done. And let me tell you what, Gil, I can't believe how many people are watching these videos. Hundreds of thousands of people are watching your videos.
That's insane. Our small little group has grown a little bit, but you can tell that we have quite the volume of outsiders in our midst. If you just read the comment section, sort of amusing. But continue following us along, and leave us a comment here or there, some feedback. Let us know what you like, what works, what doesn't, and hopefully we get to keep doing this for a little while. And I'm having fun. I hope you are too, Tmac, and I hope you are fans. So everyone, thanks for joining us for this mini-sode that's now eclipsing the 45-minute mark, if I'm reading my time code correctly. Wow, I didn't expect that. Just like I don't expect some of the stuff that goes on the field, but we'll be there to cover it for you right here on CloseCallSports.com.
Hi, this is Jack Furlong, founder, president, and CEO of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated, where OSIP stands for Outstanding Sportsmanship is Paramount, a 501c3 organization dedicated to promoting good sportsmanship throughout all capacities of sports and competition. Please be sure to check out our website at osipfoundation.org to learn about us and some of our programs, such as our blog, The Strike Zone, our podcast, How You Play the Game, our awards programs for student athletes, and Officials Anonymous, our hotline for sports officials who deal with abuse, anxiety, and other similar issues. Once again, that's osipfoundation.org.